What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the second edition of Inside the Huddle. And sadly, this week I'm not accompanied by my brother from another mother, the kid with the golden locks, Mikey Hewitt. Nope. I couldn't find anyone to co-host with me to do this Inside the Huddle Week 5 pick'ems. And so I'm riding solo today. Yes, all your guys' favorite things. Usually, Mike or, anyone to help break up the monotony of the sound of my absolutely subtly amazing voice, the nice baritone blandness that it intrudes to you guys, intrudes your ears. I'm sure you love so much. So I'm going to be doing my week 5 picks because, this is something I really enjoy doing, these NFL videos. I really want to continue this for the rest of the season. This is something I'm having fun doing. It breaks up my channel a little bit, adds a little bit of a new flavor. It appeals to a little bit more people. And it's just fun for me to do because I don't really get a chance to talk about football that much, even though Tiger videos would still be, my main thing I do make on here. So let's begin. Motor City Kitties are at home this week against the Buffalo Bills. Lions are 3-1 on the year. Bills are 2-2, and the Bills are coming off of a loss against the Texans. And E.J. Manuel was yanked out as starting quarterback, and Kyle Orton will be manning the pocket for the Bills this week. And Kyle Orton, he's a meh quarterback. Anyone that gets benched for Tim Tebow. A couple of years back, was not that great. I remember when he was on the Bears. So he's going to try his hand at being the Bills quarterback. And the Bills really, though, they've had a good defense this year. They got the 10th best defense in the NFL, 31st passing offense in the NFL, which is main reason for the change, I believe, from him to E.J. Manuel. The 13th best rushing offense. We got C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson. Doesn't hurt to have those two guys. But the 27th overall offense so far this year, so they've been a meh offense. The Lions, it pains me to say anything nice about that team since I'm not a Lions fan whatsoever, and I cannot stand that fan base, even though they beat the Packers last time out. But the Lions, went into the Meadowlands last week, faced the Jets, and they got the job done with Calvin Johnson having his lowest amount of yards ever in a Lions win. He said his ankle was messed up a little bit, and I guess it proved it. But the additions of Golden Tate and Eric Ebron really loomed large last week. Matt Stafford having another couple weapons to throw to. And, they beat the Jets. I think it was like 24-17. They look good. They're a bit of a banged-up squad. The Lions' defense this year, they actually have the #1 ranked defense in the NFL right now, statistically, which is nuts. They got the 7th best passing offense in the NFL right now. 25th rushing attack because Joique Bell and Mikel Leshore really haven't done too much this year. Or not Mikel Leshore, but Joique Bell and Reggie Bush hasn't done too much so far this year, even though they've had a couple of Reggie Bush has had a couple of decent games. And then their offense is the 12th best offense. But I'm going Lions. I hate seeing this team win because Lions fans don't know how to take winning in stride, mainly because they never see it in their franchise history. But I am going to go with the Lions simply for the fact I don't trust Kyle Orton, even though the Bills' defense has been pretty good this year. And they're 2-2, so it's not like they've been playing bad. And then tonight's game, the Green Bay Packers facing the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings travel into Lambeau for Thursday night action. And the Packers are coming off an outstanding win. Aaron Rodgers had a near-perfect passer rating against the Bears, chucked 4 touchdowns. Randall Cobb had 2. Jordy Nelson had 2, I believe. Yeah, I know Jordy Nelson had 2 for a fact because he was on my fantasy squad. And, that last week was a week I really like to see out. It was the more of like the old-style Packers offense. Last year after Aaron Rodgers went down with that injury, they had to really rely on, the run game because you had Scott Tolzien as quarterback. You had Matt Flynn as quarterback. You had one more guy who I forget his name. It was quarterback. So they had no choice but to rely on Eddie Lacy and James Starks to really kind of carry the load until Aaron Rodgers could get healthy and he can come back. And Eddie Lacy had an outstanding year. The run game really hasn't been that good whatsoever to this point. Eddie Lacy's yards are really down, so is his yards per carry. And, the first couple of weeks, trying to get, keep the balanced offense, trying to give, Lacy and Stark some handles, mainly Lacy trying to get him going, trying to give him some touches to get the run game going, but it hasn't really come to fruition. So last week, McCarthy and company made it a point to come out and do what made the Packers successful. The Packers defense hasn't been that good over the last couple of years, but they utilized their best offensive weapon, and that's Aaron Rodgers, his ability to get out of the pocket, his ability to extend plays, his ability to drive the ball down the middle of the field. And that's one thing they really haven't done is had too many long passes down the middle of the field. That's one thing that, Packers offense for the first couple of weeks, say like week 1, they lose to Seattle. handedly. And then, their second when the next week when they face the Jets, they're down 18-0 really, really quick, and then they lose the Lions, they're down 7-0 really quick, because of a defensive touchdown against them, and when Eddie Lacy fumbled the ball. And this week they finally came out. The Packers defense are like, oh man, how are they going to do? The Bears and the Packers. This game was so offensive minded that there was only the second time in NFL history that there was not a punt in the game. I mean, this is how many points are going on the board, and especially with the Packers wise, it was like, the Bears come out and score on the first drive. The Packers match them. Bears score, Packers score. Bears score, Packers score. I mean, it's like, God damn, who is going to, it's like whoever gets the ball last is going to win this game. It didn't seem like, there was going to be any chance in hell that, that the Packers are going to be able to hold them. I mean, Jay Cutler was really ripping apart the defense. But Jay Cutler was Jay Cutler, and he ended up throwing 2 interceptions. And the Packers defense really bared down after they allowed 17 points, I believe is what it was. And the Packers won this game pretty handily. They beat the Bears' ass pretty good. Like I said, it was the first time all year. Like I said, they've been really trying to get the running game going, and I'm sure they'll do that against try to get the running game going again tonight against the Vikings. But they finally went to since they saw the running game wasn't working, they went to the strength of this team that's been the strength of the team since Aaron Rodgers took over at quarterback, and that's throwing the ball. It's nice to have, a running attack, but, over the past few years, think of the running backs how many running backs Aaron Rodgers has gone through. Cedric Benson, Ahmad Green, Eddie Lacy, James Starks, Franklin. I mean, Ryan Grant. There really hasn't been a standout running back besides Lacy's last year. I mean, I know Grant had a 1,000-yard season at one time, but I mean, the strength of this team, like that 15-1 year, is throwing the ball down the field. And I don't want them to diverse from the running game too much, or diverge from it, I should say. But push comes to shove, and Lacy still isn't getting the job done. I mean, like they did last week, they focused on hitting the ball down the middle of the field. Getting the ball down the middle of the field. Man, I watch too much baseball, I swear to God. Throwing the ball in the middle of the field, utilizing Jordy Nelson. And that's another thing. Jordy Nelson has over half the receptions by wide receivers on his team. So, it was nice to see Randall Cobb get in on the action a little bit last week too. So, getting the ball down the field, long plays, so I hope Eddie Lacy gets it going, and I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers get, not have to throw the ball 40 times a game. But push comes to shove, and the running game's just not working. It was nice to see the Packers get out to a fast start and have a good win because, people in Packers country were like, oh, my God, the offense isn't starting that good. The defense is bad. And Aaron Rodgers just relax. And he proved it. So they destroyed the Bears. And obviously the Vikings last week, they had a nice win against Atlanta. Teddy Bridgewater made his debut, and he looked pretty good. I mean, you saw some diversity with the way he can make plays with his feet. He has a pretty good arm. It looks like he was pretty in sync with his receivers. It doesn't help that doesn't help to get guys like Cordell Patterson and Greg Jennings to throw the ball to. Especially Cordell Patterson. He's so versatile. So even minus AP, it was a nice win. I mean, they ended up beating the Falcons by a couple of scores. But Bridgewater, who's hurt, got an ankle injury going into Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers, coming off a win where they blew out the Bears. No shot. They lose. They beat the Packers here. So this game, the Bears and Panthers. What the hell happened to the Panthers, man? I thought this team was so damn good. They win week 1 with Derek Anderson. Week 2, they beat the Lions, and I'm like, man, the defense is looking good and everything else. And now all of a sudden, their defense is 23rd, their offense is 25th, but their passing offense is 13th. And Calvin Benjamin, who won Offensive Rookie of the Month, this kid has been outstanding. And I know firsthand because I have him on my fantasy squad. I watch him very, very close every week. He has been outstanding at wide receiver. But Cam Newton really hasn't been like Cam Newton so far to this point. And their defense hasn't been nearly as good as it was last year. I know they're minus a couple of big players like Greg Hardy and whatnot. But, they really haven't been the same kind of Carolina Panthers that won, I believe 12 games last year. And I'm pretty sure they won the NFC South. So, the Bears, they got beat last week pretty good. And their defense and offense has been meh. But something? This game is really, really hard for me to go either way. And I want to pick the Panthers, but what kind of game are we going to get from Cam Newton? How's that defense going to look? And we got Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall and Matt Forte, on the offensive side of that. I guess the defense that's been okay. So I don't know. I'm going to go with the Bears on this one. I think after getting the absolutely shit knocked out of them last week, even though their offense was moving the ball pretty good against Green Bay's defense in the early goings of that game before Cutler started going pick galore. I can't trust Cam Newton. I know they're playing at home. But I don't know. The Panthers, they're disappointing me this year so far. As long as Calvin Benjamin does good, I don't care. But, they're kind of disappointing me. So I'm going to go with the Bears on this one. Browns at Titans. This is going to be another upset. The Browns this year, they're 1-2, but don't sleep on the Browns. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but they could very easily be 3-0. They have not lost a game by more than 2 points all year. They've lost on 2 last-second field goals so far. I believe one was to Pittsburgh and one was to Cincinnati. Yeah, they lost 27-30 to Pittsburgh week 1, and then they lost 23-21 before the bye. And then they beat the Saints at home. So, they've played some really, really close games so far. Brian Hoyer has done a good job. He hasn't allowed Johnny Manziel, or Johnny Clipboard, as people are calling him nowadays, to get on the field or have any questions about is he going to be the starting quarterback? Is Johnny Manziel going to be in? No. He's done a pretty good job. Their defense hasn't been great. They're the 30th ranked defense, but their offense has been good. Their rushing attack's been pretty good so far. They got the 10th best rushing offense in the NFL. And the Titans, they started 1-0, but after that game against the Cowboys in week 2, where they got absolutely screwed up by them, they got destroyed. They haven't been playing well at all. So I'm going with the Browns on this one, just simply for the fact because they could very well be 3-0. They have not lost. They've lost 2 games, but they're both on last-second field goals. They played both teams tough. So I'm gonna go with the Browns. I think they're a pretty underrated squad so far. Their record doesn't dictate how they've played for sure. Eagles, Rams at Eagles. I'm going with the Eagles. Last week was a shocker. The Eagles have scored the most points in the fourth quarter this year in the NFL. And the 49ers held them out with not a single point in the fourth quarter, and then they came back and beat them, which was really surprising. Nick Foles had a couple of brutally bad picks in this game. But you can't sleep on the Rams either. They are 1-2, but so far with Austin Davis now at the quarterback, he's been officially named their quarterback from here on out. With Sam Bradford being hurt and Sean Hill being hurt. They're ninth. They got the 9th best offense in the league right now. They got the 12th best defense. They got the 9th best passing attack. Their rushing attack is 22nd. But I don't think at Philly. I just trust the Eagles at home. Coming off a loss where they could have been very easily a win. They could score in the fourth quarter. The Eagles' defense hasn't been good. Their offensive line has been banged up pretty good this year. They lost another offensive lineman, and then Shady McCoy is bad so far. His yards per carry is down. His total yards is even his catching receiving yards is down. He is not having a good year, but I still like what you get with Nick Foles and company. I like Chip Kelly's offense, even against a good Rams defense. So I'm going to go with the Eagles on this one. I think they're going to bounce back. They're a really good team. Then we got the Falcons at Giants, and I can't believe this. I'm going with Big Blue, man. After last week where Eli Manning absolutely just shit on the Redskins. I like Kirk Cousins too. I think Kirk Cousins fits that Jay Gruden's offense a lot better than RG3. Man, did Kirk Cousins have a bad game against Big Blue and company. And Eli Manning threw for 4 touchdowns. It was a joker of a game. It was last Thursday night's game. And wow. The Giants, after I think they started 0-2. They've won the last 2 straight. They beat the Texans. And then last week they absolutely embarrassed the Redskins. And their defense has been playing pretty good the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to go with the Giants over the Falcons. I think they ride out the hot hand. I think that offense looks a lot better. Everyone was wondering in preseason, how bad their offense was. And they weren't scoring any points in the first 2 weeks. Manny looked awful. The last couple of weeks, Big Blue and company has kind of straightened it out a little bit. Their offenses looked a lot better. Their defenses looked pretty good. So I think they're gonna ride. I'm gonna ride out the hot hand here, and I'm gonna take the Giants at the Meadowlands over the Falcons. And then we got Bucks at Saints. And Saints got messed up by the Cowboys. My God, can the Saints not win on the road? When they're not playing at the Superdome, they're just not the same squad. But they're playing at the Superdome. And even though the Bucks pulled out a miracle win, that game too, by the way, I was watching that Bucks game against the Steelers. My fucking goodness, was that an amazing game. They're down at the goal line. There was a goal line stand. They get the ball back with 40 seconds to go. Mike Glennon hits his tight end. And then Vincent Jackson catches that ball in the end zone with 13, 14 seconds to go. My God, what an amazing ending game. By the way, I like the Bucks' new logo, but their jerseys are fucking terrible looking. They're ugly as sin. Jesus. But I'm going the Saints. They're playing at home. they absolutely they're the greatest. They're the second greatest show on turf. You know, the greatest show on turf part two. For some reason, they can't win on the road. I mean, that was the Browns' only win was beating the Saints. You know, and they already lost to the Cowboys pretty handedly at Jerryland. So you know, I'm going with the Saints because they're playing at home. They're not easy to beat there. The Texans at Cowboys, both 3-1 squads. You know, Texans last year I think only had 2 wins all last year, and they've already surpassed that. And the Texans, you know, they've looked good this year. J.J. Watt is an absolute monster. He had an interception last week for a touchdown. He's a beast. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's done decent work so far. You know, Alfred Blue has done good work filling in for Arian Foster. You know, I like what they got so far. Their defenses look pretty good. Brian Cushing and, you know, J.J. Watt, just two absolutely monstrous players. And they don't even have Jadeveon Clowney either. But the Cowboys, man, you know, after starting 0-1, they got the shit knocked out of them by the Niners week 1. They have looked really, really, really good. What's his name? DeMarco Murray. My God, is he good? I remember when he came up with not Julius Jones. Yeah, his name is Julius Jones. Because I remember when Jones was coming around, when Marion Barber was the running back. And then Jones replaced Barber. And then I remember when DeMarco Murray came up. And he took over for Jones. And my God, DeMarco Murray he's just evolved into this stud of a running back. He had this run this week against the Saints where he was like 6 Saints players around him, and he busted out of that like a big scrum pile and almost nearly took it to the house. He got tripped up, or he would have been gone for like a 55-yard run. He's just so good. He's leading the league in rushing. You know, he's had monster week after monster week so far. You know, it's really, really helped the Cowboys too because, you know, when they have to rely on Tony Romo, who is not a great decision maker with the football, let's be honest. You know, he throws a lot of picks, a lot of dumb passes. When you don't have to have the ball in Romo's hands all the time, you know, you can get it out of his hands quickly and, you know, make, you know, not put the whole load on him. It helps a lot, and the offense has really, really benefited from it. And Dez Bryant's having another great year. You know, DeMarco Murray just really leading the way. And the Cowboys, who haven't had it, you know, were looked at as like one of the worst defenses, you know, was going to be in the NFL this year. You know, they played pretty good the last couple of weeks, you know, defensively wise. They've forced some takeaways. You know, they haven't given up many points. So I'm going with the Cowboys on this one. I just think, you know, they're playing at Jerryland, even though they don't have a great career record at Jerryland. You know, but they're playing at Jerryland again. You know, the way DeMarco Murray is absolutely amazing. You've been playing amazing at Dez Bryant, you know, having another good year so far. I'm gonna ride out Tony Romo and company just because of the fact you get DeMarco Murray and he's just shredding any defense right now. Then we got Ravens at Colts. Colts looking like the Colts how we should be. The Colts should be 4-0 right now. Let's be honest. If they lose to Denver, you know, and then lose a heartbreaker to Philly, you know, and then the last 2 weeks they've been Andrew Luck. My God, he's so good. I was the stat this morning. Andrew Luck has 13 touchdowns, and I forget what team it was. Man, I think it was the Jets. They only had 13 touchdowns all of last year. I think it was passing touchdowns all of last year. And, you know, Andrew Luck has it all already this season, and we're only in week 5. I want to say it was the Jets. I can't remember, but I think it was the Jets. They only had 13 passing touchdowns all of last year, and it was nuts. And, man, Andrew Luck, he's just a monster. He's my man crush of the NFL. I love Andrew Luck so much. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL in the next 2 years, without a doubt. His decision making, his pocket presence, his poise. He's kind of underrated for speed wise. His arm strength. He just knows how to run an offense. We got guys like Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton to throw the ball to. It doesn't hurt. So I mean, his run game isn't good. That Trent Richardson trade hasn't looked great so far, but. Ravens, I mean, I know the Ravens have been playing a bit better as of late, but I'm just meh on the Ravens. I think the Colts should be 4-0 right now, and I'm taking them over the Ravens, especially in Indy. Then we got Steelers at Jags. I already talked about how the Steelers got lost at home in an upset. Blake Bortles last week made his first career start, and Bortles looked pretty good with the ball. I mean, they got absolutely annihilated by the Chargers. My boy Phillip Rivers on my fantasy squad, who's been absolutely amazing. Phillip Rivers has been goddamn good. But I'm going to take the Steelers. They're going to bounce back. They're not going to lose to the Jags. They won't. Big Ben's going to bounce back. And then we got Cardinals at Broncos. This is a great game. The Cardinals defense has been really good. And Ken Wisenhunt, I really like him. And Drew Stanton, he's done a nice. Ken Wisenhunt's done a nice job so far. And Drew Stanton's looked pretty good. Larry Fitt, I don't think has a touchdown yet this year. But you know, they've been finding ways to get it done. You know, even with Larry Fitt having a bit of a down year. I'm going to take, even though the Cardinals defense is really good. You know, look what Peyton Manning managed to do against the Seahawks. You They absolutely destroyed him in the Super Bowl. They kept him down for the first 3 quarters of the game in Seattle. And then he had that nice comeback win, or that nice comeback to force overtime, but he didn't get the ball because Marshawn Lynch scored that on the final drive. If Peyton Manning could do that on the Seattle defense that absolutely murdered him, the Cardinals' defense isn't Seattle's defense. Let's be honest here. They've got the 5th best defense in the NFL. But playing at Mile High, Peyton Manning at home, like I said, he found a way to come back and at least tie the game against, a amazing defense in Seattle, a place where opposing quarterbacks don't have an easy time playing. I'm going to go with Peyton Manning here because Peyton Manning is probably my top 3 favorite player in the NFL right now. I just love Peyton Manning. I love everything about him. And, Emmanuel Sanders is having a great year. Also on my fantasy squad. You're going to hear that a lot, man. I love talking about my fantasy squad players because my team's good this year. Emmanuel Sanders having a good year. Wes Welker, he just got back. We got Demaryius Thomas and Julius Thomas out there. So, Monty Ball, their defense has been a lot better too, as well. So even though, they got the 27th worst defense so far, but their pass rush at least has been a lot better since they got DeMarcus Ware. And Talib as well. Man, I can't believe they got the 23rd worst offense in the NFL so far. But I'm still taking them. I don't care. Chiefs at 49ers. You know something? I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. They absolutely embarrassed Tom Brady. Their defense looked like the Chiefs' defense of last year. Let's be honest. The Chiefs' defense so far this year has not been like it was last year, even though they got the 11th best defense in the NFL so far this year. But last year, that defense was amazing. They forced a lot of turnovers. Alex Smith last week, looked a lot better. He looked a lot better than he did the week before. The defense absolutely murdered Tom Brady. Had a couple of picks. One was a pick 6. Their pass rush. Well, let's be honest. The Patriots' offensive line is shit, but their pass rush was just on Tom Brady the entire night. And now Jamal Charles finally looked like Jamal Charles. Also on my fantasy squad. The first couple weeks he was hurt. The first week he comes out of the game real early. Second week, he has the high ankle sprain. Third week, he's meh. And then this week, my God, Jamal Charles had a couple of touchdowns, over 100 yards. Him and Niall Davis are forming one of the better rushing tandems in the NFL right now. Go look at Niall Davis's stats. You'd be surprised. And Paul, Niles Paul, I believe he's having another good year as well. So, the Niners defense, everyone's kind of scared about, like, how are they going to do? They got the 2nd best defense in the NFL, but, I don't trust Kaepernick. I'm on Kaepernick, So I'm going to go with the Chiefs. The way they embarrassed Tom Brady, their defense looked super, super good last week. You got that great, Jamal Charles looks like he's back. Once you got him and Niles Davis going at the same time, they're a nice squad. Even with Alex Smith, he's coming back to play at San Fran, a place he was never really accepted in. He started out good, got hurt, and then they ended up getting rid of him. They ended up benching him and putting Kaepernick in midway through the season. He was playing well in. So, he's got something to prove coming and play against his old team. Like I said, with Jamal Charles, finally looking like Jamal Charles with Niles Davis. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, man. I think they're going to upset some people. Jets and Chargers. I'm not going to waste much time. Phillip Rivers, monster year so far. He's so good. He had one bad week so far for fantasy. And after this, after the last couple of weeks, he's had at least 25 points. He's been absolutely amazing. Phillip Rivers, the man. That's all I got to say about that. Chargers going to win this one. You watch. Easy game. And it's in San Diego. No shot, Jets. Bengals at Patriots. This is going to be kind of like, oh, my God, I can't believe he's taking them. I know how bad and how many offensive linemen that the Patriots have had to go through this year. And I know how bad Tom Brady's looked this year. I think he only has 4 touchdowns on the year. He was snapping the ball. And the lineman might as well just stood up and let all the Chiefs defensive linemen come through, because that's what it was like. Tom Brady was getting hit all night. He had a couple of fumbles. He had a couple of brutal picks. He wasn't in sync with any of his wide receivers. But this man is Tom Brady. You look at his hand, he's got 3 rings on his finger. He's been to 5 Super Bowls. That was the 2nd worst loss in the Belichick era. They're playing in Foxborough, a place they have dominated in the Tom Brady era. I know how good Cincy is. They're 3-0. I know how good Cincy's defense has been. I think they've actually been better than what the Chiefs were. Well, they're about the same. I think the Chiefs were the 11th best defense? Yeah, the 11th, and the Bengals are the 14th best. Nonetheless, they're playing in Foxborough. Belichick is the head coach still. Brady is still, Tom Brady at the end of the day. I know how unpretty that loss looked. It was absolutely a brutal ass kicking. And I know how bad the offensive line has been. They've gone through like a merry-go-round of offensive linemen. But I think this week, playing in Foxborough, after, that off the second worst loss in the Belichick era as the Patriots head coach, I think they're going to come out. And I think this is going to be the week Tom Brady looks like Tom Brady, especially playing at home. So the Bengals have been good. They really have. But I'm going to go with Tom Brady and company. You get embarrassed like that the way they did last week against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Come back home to Foxborough. I'm sure Belichick, it wasn't a pretty week in Patriots camp. I'm sure they really stressed on protecting Tom Brady because Tom Brady is what you call the fleetest of foot quarterback. He's a guy that lives and dies in the pocket. He's not going to be exactly the one that runs and gets you some first downs and avoids a lot of pressure. So I'm going to take the Patriots and company in this one because the Patriots defense up until this last week was a pretty good defense. I mean, they've got the fourth best defense in the NFL right now, and they've been forcing a lot of takeaways. So their defense has been great, even though the Chiefs shit on them. But like I said, the way they got absolutely manhandled. There's no way the Bengals going into Foxborough. There's no way after that loss the Patriots are going to come out and look like they did last week. Not a shot in hell. That is one of the worst losses in Tom Brady's career. Not a shot in hell that repeats itself twice, especially in Foxborough. So I'm going the Patriots at home. And then Seattle Redskins. I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins. I know you're at home, but yeah. Seattle's going to win that game. So I'm not even going to waste my time. But I hope Kirk Cousins has a bounce-back game on Monday night because I like Kirk Cousins a lot. I'm not a Michigan State fan, but I think he's a good quarterback. And I think maybe he bounces back. But Seattle's defense is really good. You got Marshawn Lynch, still back there running the ball. Russell Wilson, I like him a lot too. I think he's a very, very good young quarterback. And like I said, as long as you still got that defensive squad back there, like they have, Seattle, I think Seattle wins this game at Washington. So I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Next week, I'm going to have I'm going to actually have a guest with me on here next week because I'm sure just listen to me talk and rant for this video is probably 22 minutes long. It's definitely not too fun for you guys, the viewers, the listeners, but hey, I wanted to get this video out here. I wanted to get it done because I wanted to get my picks. Agree, disagree, maybe, if you want to be on here one week with me and I'm short a co-host, leave a comment down below. Maybe I'll give you a tryout. I don't know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What do you think? Agree with my picks? Disagree? Let's hear from you guys. Have a good one. Go Pack.